Here are my quick thoughts on UFC 309. Marcus McGee looked pretty sharp in the first two rounds. You could tell in the third round, once he got his leg kicked and he was hurt, that he was just on survival mode and he didn't have a plan beyond picking at Jonathan Martinez at range. It was a good fight. I really don't know why Jonathan Martinez was so hesitant the whole fight. It seemed like he was waiting for something to happen and it never happened. Um, and then when he had Marcus McGee hurt in the third round, he held him against the cage for 30 seconds or more. It seemed bizarre. Even the commentary team was saying that this is the wrong thing to do when you have somebody hurt and he can barely move. You should be separating and looking for a finish. So Marcus McGee looked really good. Um, he looks better. He looks more impressive when he faces people that he doesn't take as a threat. And going forward, he's going to be facing a lot of threats. So we're not going to be seeing so much of Marcus McGee where he was just hunting people down. I was expecting him to walk Martinez down. That didn't happen. He gave Martinez a lot of respect with the leg kicks that he anticipated. So good win. I was hoping we would see a finish from McGee, but it's all good. Um, as long as he won, that's all that matters. Mauricio Rufy versus James Lontop. Rufy couldn't get the finish. He was trying too hard to be flashy. He wanted to have a moment where he could get a highlight KO, and the problem with that is I don't want to say it lowers his stock because he couldn't finish Yontop, but I do believe that it would have been more impressive if he had just displayed his fundamentals at a high level and just dominated the whole fight rather than trying to be all showy and get this highlight reel knockout. I understand that he's trying to build himself as a star, and that makes sense to me. But people are going to look back at that fight and be like, you couldn't finish that guy who was unranked. So I don't think less of him. I understand his approach was that of somebody who's trying to gain fans. But you got to get the finish, especially if you're unranked. You got to be putting guys out so that when someone sees you on a card, a pay-per-view, and they're like, oh, Rufy's back, he's going to get a crazy finish. Yeah, I think just it was a decent fight. My stream kept cutting out, so I missed like chunks of the second and third round. But overall, from what I saw, it seemed like he was picking apart Yontop pretty bad. But Yontop had his moments too. It wasn't entirely one-sided, especially in the third round. So good win for him. Got to get the finish though. Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. I said in my last video in my predictions for 309 that if Bo Nickal took Paul Craig to a decision, he would lose hype. And not only did he take him to a decision, he didn't shoot a takedown. It was just right overhands the whole time. His striking is super limited. I don't know what he was trying to do. And I also don't like his attitude after the fight and the way he spoke about the fans, and it's confusing. On one hand, you have Bo Nickal at the end of his fight at UFC 300 saying that he was very disappointed with himself because he didn't get a finish in the first round. And now you have Bo Nickal at 309 saying that he's very happy with his performance. And here's my thing. If he needs to get hard sparring, or if he needs to get experience with striking, he needs to do hard sparring. You don't just jump into a fight on a pay-per-view and then do that. The crowd was literally saying overrated because he's so overrated. I don't understand why he didn't shoot a takedown. I feel like Bo Nickel approached the fight as if it's practice, which is bizarre because this is on your record and you couldn't finish Paul Craig, who lately has been getting knocked out, and it seems like his chin is getting weaker over time. So why wouldn't you go to your bread and butter, take this guy down, and just drop elbows in the ground and pound? I don't understand his approach. It was bizarre. It was frustrating to watch. From a guy who calls himself pay-per-view material, I believe before UFC 300, when people were frustrated that he was on the pay-per-view, the main card, he was saying he's a main card fighter. No, you're not. No, not with that fight. You're not. Not with this fight against Paul Craig. He's a feature fight on the prelims fighter. That's not something that belongs on the main card. If he continues like that, I don't want to see it. And it's funny because people were comparing Bo Nickel to Khamzat Chimaev. No, you can't do that anymore. Like, Chimaev would take him down and either submit him or ground and pound, knock him out in the first round. I truly believe that. I'm not a betting man. I'm I don't gamble, but if I was a gambler, I would put a lot of money on Chimaev getting Bo Nickel out of there in the first round. But I don't think he's ever going to see Chimaev. I don't think he's going to get to that level. If he keeps this up, he won't. Terrible fight. I hated watching it. Like I said, he would lose hype. He lost hype during the fight, and the crowd let him know. People, I believe, the commentary team was saying, "Oh, that's New York for you, those New York fans." And I know that in sports, New York is known for being harsh to their teams or to athletes. I think that fight would get booed. I think that fight would get booed anywhere in the country. That was bad. Horrible, actually. I don't want to see him on a main card ever again, or until he gets some more finishes so he can earn his way back. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Charles looked great. I know he didn't get the finish, but Charles looked great. I say that because something I had thought about for a long time when I'm watching Charles fight. I'm always wondering what his endurance is going to be like for 5 rounds. And I'm thinking, well, he's not the kind of fighter that will go 5 rounds. He's either going to finish somebody or be finished within the first 3 rounds, or we haven't seen him in a 4th round before. Maybe we have, and I'm just ignorant to that. But my point is, his cardio is decent. He was getting tired in the 4th and the 5th from the grappling exchanges. Michael Chandler is like one of the dirtiest fighters I've ever seen. I already knew that from watching him fight Dustin Poirier, that like the way he was fish hooking and like getting his finger in the mouth of Poirier, and then eye poking and fence grabbing and holding the gloves. But what he did in this fight against Charles Oliveira, I was yelling at the screen. Keith Peterson is horrible. I fully understand what Dominic Cruz was saying as far as all nonsense Keith Peterson. There were so many fence grabs, no warnings, no points taken away. There were some eye pokes. He didn't pause the fight and say, "Are you okay? Do you need time?" He didn't do any of that. But the worst of it was, I counted 17 back of the head shots in the 5th round when he had Charles hurt. Insane. And Keith Peterson was standing right there in front of in front of Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira. And he's looking right at these back of the head shots and he does nothing. That was infuriating. That that was horrible. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. It's like you can cheat because the ref won't do anything about it. It really depends on the ref. If you're a fighter and you have Keith Peterson as the ref, you can get away with anything. And I don't know if it was because there was some American bias because, you know, Chandler is in New York and Trump is there. I don't know if that's what that was about. But I hated that. And I'm glad that Charles won. He dominated 4 rounds of that fight. And then Chandler calls out Conor again. At this rate, I'd be surprised if Conor comes back. Dana said Conor would come back in late 2025. But you said that this year. You said he would be fighting in late 2024. So now it's a whole nother year that we have to wait. Why? For his toe? I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is I don't think he wants to fight. So people need to stop calling him out because he's not going to fight. Let the man retire. Yeah, I don't want to hear people shouting out Conor McGregor in the post fight. The dude's essentially retired now. Moving on. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. This fight shouldn't have happened in the first place, but basically, Jon Jones, an older Jon Jones in the tail end of his career, fights a retired Stipe Miocic. And I remember people saying that Jon Jones is better than Ngannou and he's going to beat Stipe faster than Francis did. But here's the thing. Francis knocked out a younger and better Stipe in 2 rounds, where Jon Jones took an older, retired Stipe, who was much slower, 3 rounds. He almost took him into the 4th round. No one can convince me that Francis Ngannou would lose to Jon Jones right now. I believe Francis knocks out Jon Jones. Do I think Jon Jones could get Francis on the ground? Maybe. I don't see... Well, here's the thing. I don't think he wants to get close enough for that. I think Jon knows he would get caught. And it's going to be a very tentative leg and body kicking kind of exchange before any grappling ensues. But to get back to the fight, Stipe looked old and slow. And it's crazy to say that and then in the fight see that Stipe was catching Jon Jones in moments. It was bizarre. It makes me think, oh, Jon Jones isn't as good as we thought. And if Stipe, at 42 years old, can get to the 3rd round and be relatively competitive with Jon Jones in 2024, how bad is Ciryl Gane? Ciryl got submitted in the 1st round and looked terrible. So I really don't understand the skill level of Ciryl Gane. Horrible. Yeah, I said in my prediction that Jon, following common sense and reality, that Jon Jones would win, but I wanted Stipe to win by knockout. And I made my official prediction that Stipe would win by knockout because I'm not going to pick Jon Jones to win a fight. I'm not going to do it. It was boring. It was so boring. It was a really boring fight. All this hype, all the build up to a really boring fight of just two older guys, a fat John Jones and a old man Stipe Miocic. It was bad. I'm so tired of hearing about John Jones and him acting like a diva and I wish this guy would just retire. I was so mad when he didn't retire. Get out of the sport. You're holding up the sport. We want to see Tom Aspinall defending his undisputed belt. What John Jones has right now is not an undisputed belt. It's disputed. He's not fighting the interim champion. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Dana and the UFC are kind of making it clear that they either want Jones to fight Aspinall or retire, and they don't want to make that Pereira fight. John Jones has made it clear that he wants that Pereira fight over anything, and he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, and he called Tom Aspinall an asshole. Does anybody know Tom Aspinall? I think he's the most respectful guy in the sport. He's super personable. You want to talk about sportsmanship? Like the picture in the dictionary for sportsmanship should have Tom Aspinall's face. The guy embodies sportsmanship. And he just wants his fight. He's been told by John Jones that he's a nobody. He's an up-and-comer like Ovince St. Preux was to John Jones when he was at light heavyweight. He's not a nobody. He's defended the interim championship. And the way for him to become a somebody in John Jones' eyes, which would be a champion, is if he fights the champion. And it just so happens that John Jones is the champion. And he's saying no. Are we being real? Get this dude out of the sport. I want him to retire. I hope the UFC strips him if he refuses to fight Tom Aspinall. And I don't want to ever hear about John Jones again. But I know we will forever because there are people who genuinely think that this guy is the greatest of all time. Horrible. Overall, the event was... it was meh to me. The only fight I was looking forward to was the co-main event because I'm a big Charles Oliveira fan. I wanted Charles to get that finish. He didn't get the finish, but he beat Michael Chandler. I don't like Michael Chandler at all. So it was good on that end. Yeah, that's my thoughts on UFC 309. I'll be posting more. And leave comments if you see this video. I'm out.